Teruorigawa Bookmakers presents The Dead of Winter, a Novelist's Kanazawa Afterlife by George Stenson. Chapter 2. His thigh muscles tense. Teruorigawa Bookmakers presents The Dead of Winter, a Novelist's Kanazawa Afterlife by George Stenson. Chapter 2. His thigh muscles tense. He thought that after his death, his thighs wouldn't hurt after running from Marquez up the hill beside Kenrokuen, around the outside of the garden, and back to Marquez, about 2.5 kilometers. But, like always, they did. He assumed that pain was part of being alive. Pain of birth, pain of falling crotch first onto the crossbar of a boy's bicycle, pain of being bullied in junior high school, pain of hearing a wrong series of notes while an amateur jazz band attempted to play a Love Supreme, all part of living. After his second lap, he settled in Marquez for water and a cup of black coffee. Judy served him a glass of ice water that he gulped down in a single swallow, the cold hurting his throat while easing his thirst at the same time, the pain of relief. He dug out a cube and rubbed it across his forehead to help him cool down. In the old days, before society acknowledged smoking was disgusting, when he finished smearing an ice cube against his forehead or the back of his sweaty neck, he dropped the cube in the ashtray. Every table, every household, every train, every automobile, every hospital waiting room had an ashtray. But these days, none of those did. So he dropped the slowly evaporating cube back into his water glass. He closed his eyes. With closed eyes, he could concentrate and enjoy the prestige recording of Coltrane flow through his ears. He could imagine the ice water fall down his esophagus, trickle into his stomach, and surround the digested remnants of his breakfast. When he opened his eyes, he was shocked, surprised, bewildered, and a little bit frightened. There was music, but it was generic. The room was dark, but filled with people whispering. He was in a restaurant on the top of a building. Through the wide tourist windows, he could see the night, Korimbo, the Daiwa department store's Christmassy white lights, and the darkness that was Kenrokuen, snuggled up to the well-lit Kanazawa Castle. Across the table sat a smiling Judy. She wasn't dressed like a 22-year-old in midriff exposing top and loose-fitting cargo pants. She was wearing a chic black cocktail dress with a plunging neckline that nearly reached her belly button and showed off her cleavage, which wasn't as big as he imagined American women's cleavage should be. What concerned him most was not her half-exposed breasts, but that her body was the first thing he thought about. Wasn't he trying not to think of women as cardboard personalities with boobs? You look nice. You too, Kafka. Thanks for inviting me. He looked down at his own body. He wore a charcoal gray suit with a black turtleneck sweater. Was he trying to look like a software mogul? Or was this what famous authors wore? Thanks. Cheers. Judy held her drink in the air with an expression of a new day on the horizon. Cheers. The novelist clicked his drink against hers. His was a gin and tonic. Hers looked like a Negroni, something he had never heard of, knew about, or saw when he was walking around alive. Did we order already? Judy nodded her head, put her glass down, and ran her forefinger around the rim. What were you thinking when you wrote that Beatles novel? Are you going to interview me all through dinner? Just wondering why you didn't write your own title. I thought it fit what I wrote. That's what I do. Did. Yes, thank you for reminding me. Writers think a little bit differently than normal people. How? I heard some talk show host ask Stephen King if he ever started but not finished a novel. That's the question only a non-writer would ask. Writers always, I mean always, start novels they never finish. They start them in their heads, think about them for hours, days, years, and finally discard them. They write 80, 90, 200 pages and realize on page 201 that the story isn't working. That's like asking a cook if they ever start cooking an omelet and then not finish it. What cook stops halfway through making an omelet? A non writer question for a writer. Wow, that's the most I've heard you speak all at once in years. It is? Judy nodded and looked out the restaurant window. Nice view. The novelist gazed out at the darkness punctuated by city light. I'm working at having a place like this. This, Judy waved her fingers at the restaurant, is my goal. An eatery on the top floor of a hotel in some city with a view of, I don't know, which would be better, an ocean, mountain, or city view? But you don't cook. Chefs cook, owners manage. She sipped her drink. Writers write. See how that works? The novelist nodded, looked around the restaurant, which was bathed in a shallow, some would call it romantic, light that focused on the tables but not the empty space between them. Rent must be high. He sipped his drink. Even if the hotel owns this place. Why'd you order the mackerel? It's not a particularly expensive cut. In a place like this, Judy glanced around, I'd have thought you'd like the salmon or bluefin tuna. In a similar vein, why'd you order a baked potato instead of rice? And the bread here is good, famous for being delicious. They outsource their bread from someplace in Shintatemachi. I can buy it there anytime. Judy took a swig of her drink. But very, very, very few places make baked potatoes and garnish them with garlic butter, bacon bits, chives, and sour cream. Delish, right? I guess. You lived abroad for like 100 years and you never ate a baked potato with all the trimmings? What were you doing? Escaping Japan? Well, I was. Never mind. Look, Judy held up her empty glass of Negroni. Shall we order another? Good catch. I guess it pays to be observant if you want to be a writer. Were you an observant kid growing up in wherever you grew up? She licked her middle finger, deliberately circled the lip of her empty glass slowly, seductively. The novelist took it to mean she was sexually interested in him. He looked at her quiet eyes as they concentrated on his. I'm married, he announced. Oh? She took her finger off the glass and wrapped it in her napkin to clean it. This she did with a sly smile while repeatedly pulling her finger in and out of the napkin. Happily, he raised his hand to attract the waiter. Why did you feel the need to add that? She smiled at the waiter and held up her empty glass. Another, por favor. The waiter turned to Murakami. I'm fine. I'm sure you are. Would you like another drink, sir? The novelist stared at the waiter. Was he making a joke? Did he really not understand I'm fine means no thank you? Was he trying to impress Judy with his sense of humor? Or him? No, thank you. The waiter nodded at the novelist, smiled at Judy, and walked off to ask the bartender for another Negroni, a drink he never enjoyed the one time he drank one on vacation with his ex-girlfriend in Florence. Judy reminded him of his ex. Same smile, same hairstyle, same body type, adventurous. He sighed and gave the bartender Judy's drink order and fell into reminiscing about his ex, Florence, and the cafe in front of the small plaza with 5 streets entering it. Do you often fantasize about other people and their lives before they met you? I do. Like that waiter. I imagine him living in some small town and dreaming of moving to the big city, which, for him, is Kanazawa. Just like my dream is moving to Tokyo or Kyoto or Osaka, and he's never left this area. She circled her hands around to mean Kanazawa or the 3 prefectures that made up the Hokuriku area. Except for school trips to Kyoto to be bored out of his mind looking at temples or what's his name's house, the guy who was killed in Kyoto, Oda Nobunaga. History isn't my strong suit. She nodded as she accepted her second drink from the waiter, who smiled and walked off without speaking a word. She held her glass up to comply with the novelist, or geography. Math's my downfall. It's getting late, and you haven't asked me to go to your hotel yet. But when you do, we'll have sex for an hour or two, but afterwards I'll go to my apartment. lay down on my bed naked after a shower, and remember our night of lovemaking, embellishing each remembrance with more elaborate and finite details that will astound the listener, who I tell about my sexual encounter with Kafka that evening before he realized who I was, or the reader of your next novel, as I'm sure you'll embellish and elaborate our tryst for the justification of screwing a woman young enough to be your granddaughter or your great granddaughter, but who attack the sex with an enthusiasm people, usually men, usually associate with virile male prisoners denied female companionship for half a decade or more, and you won't be able to describe the feeling I had when I orgasmed 3 or 4 or 5 times in that hour or two, so your readers will only see the falseness of making love to a goddess, a cloud, an imagination. What?